All right, my name is Taylor Cross, and I'm a master's student here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in Mechanized Systems Management under Dr. Joe Luck. He's in the Biological Systems Engineering department. So I'm going to talk about sensor-based fertigation management, the on-farm research trials we did this year, go through the results, talk a little bit about how we did these studies, and what we've found over the years. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we actually implemented these studies. And so what we're doing is we're flying UAVs that have multispectral sensors on them in order to detect nitrogen deficiency. And then we make a fertigation, in-season fertigation application and put on the nitrogen that way. So to begin the study, we do this preseason data collection and site setup right here. And what that looks like is we're taking into account things like elevation, topography, our soil EC, if we have it, past yield data, organic matter, soil samples, anything that really lets us get a good understanding for that field and maybe what kind of variability we have in that site. So once we have that, we then establish these indicator blocks by the V6 growth stage. And so what those indicator blocks look like is whenever that farmer is going to be establishing these, whatever his base rate of nitrogen might be at this time, we're going to put 30 pounds, we're going to put a strip of 30 pounds of nitrogen more and 30 pounds less, right next to each other in the field, within the management zone, within a treatment sector. So you can see here on the left, this is kind of what our site setup looks like. So what we're looking at when we collect this imagery is those high and low strips of nitrogen. So we're able to determine maybe like what that corn would look like in a week, or what it would look like if we didn't apply in a week, and so forth. So we're able to calculate that deficiency from there. So this is a little snapshot here of what our drone looks like. And so we fly this drone weekly from V6 to R3, and we're able to collect this image right here and process all those images it takes to get this result. And this is an NDRE image, and once we have that, we then can analyze it. So from this, we can see which areas maybe are more deficient or sufficient than others. And then we can generate a fertigation decision from this. So we see that these green sectors here are areas that are deficient and need nitrogen. So this is more or less a prescription for that pivot. So once we have that, we make a fertigation application. And ideally, we want to do this turnaround within 48 hours for research purposes, but sometimes we have unexpected rainfall and we are unable to start the pivot. Or so forth. So this is just kind of how we implement it in season and the technology that we use to automate this process. So this is a map of where we've done studies over the past 4 years. We've got about 20 sites. A couple of them we've done back to back, so that's why you don't really see 20 stars here. We have a lot in Central Platte region, and we have a couple out in Saunders County, and then up in Elgin as well. I'm just going to briefly talk about these treatments that we're going to focus on for this presentation. We have done a couple of treatment approaches over the years. These are the two that we were really set on this year on testing. So within a field, we actually have 3 treatment types, and that other third one is the grower's nitrogen management. So that's completely up to the grower on when he puts his nitrogen on, how much, what form, so forth. So here we see the risk-averse post-establishment and the risk-averse post-establishment increased rate. So at the V6 growth stage is when we kind of take over control on whether that treatment sector is going to receive nitrogen or not. So we take that imagery and decide if it's sufficient or deficient and so forth, and we stop at R3 like we mentioned previously. The only difference on these two treatments though is that between V9 and V14 for the increased rate, we're actually putting on 60 pounds of nitrogen instead of any other time during this growing window. We're putting on 30 pounds of nitrogen. So that's the big difference between the two, and the reason is we know between V9 and V14 that corn nitrogen uptake is really intense during that time, and it might actually use all of that 30 pounds if we were to put it on during that time in like a 10-day window if we had a problem with imagery. So this kind of minimizes that risk during this season. So we put on 60 pounds during that time frame. So I'll jump in here to this site 1. So just some background information on this. Previous crop was corn. We just got a holder loam soil, 2.6% organic matter, not really any nitrates in our water here. We got 0.2 parts per million. We did have some pre-season soil sampling done, and we can account for about 37 pounds of residual nitrogen in the soil. But that is none of these factors over here are included in this graphic. This is solely just our applied nitrogen in season over the growing degree days and growth stages. So one thing to note is that this field did suffer hail damage at V6. This green line is the growers applied nitrogen throughout the season, and the blue and purple are our sensor-based treatment. So you can see RAP is blue and the RAP IR is that increased rate one, and that's purple. So from there, we can see that that farmer put on about 246 pounds of nitrogen per acre, and we put on 148 pounds of nitrogen an acre. So statistical difference here, you can see by these letters, that's what those means, if it's statistical or statistically different or not. We saw about 98 pounds of nitrogen difference between the two treatments. But when we look over at our yield, we don't have a statistical difference between the sensor-based treatments and the grower's treatment. So this just show that, that extra 98 pounds of nitrogen really wasn't needed at this site. That corn wasn't able to produce any more than the 148 pounds of nitrogen. We had NUE of 0.7 and 0.69 for the sensor-based treatments, which resulted in about 46% more efficient than that grower's treatment. So, and this is a really high NUE value. I don't think if this is definitely due to the hail damage, and we really were expecting, closer to 250 yields. That's why, he was originally putting on 246 pounds of nitrogen here, but that just didn't happen due to that hail. And we did see that our sensor-based treatments are more profitable by $93 an acre, and that marginal net return difference there was statistically different. So yeah, this site was really interesting just because, like I said, we had received hail damage, and we didn't necessarily know what it was going to yield, but this methodology just allows for us to really determine like when that corn needs nitrogen, and obviously didn't need as much as we anticipated. So we were able to put on less with sensor-based treatments. We'll go on here to our post-harvest soil sampling. So here we took soil samples in each sector and compared those treatments. So the green bars here on this graphic are the grower's treatment, and the purple and blue are the sensor-based treatments. So we have a statistical difference in every sample that we pulled. We pulled 2 samples, 0 to 8 inches and 8 to 24 inches. And so this is just the conversion of that parts per million nitrate to pounds of nitrogen an acre. And then we can see here about 30 pounds of nitrogen, of residual nitrogen that's left in the soil difference between the growers' sectors and ours. And this just really matches that correlation from that over applications of nitrogen without really seeing a yield difference too. So we're on to site 2. This previous crop was seed corn here. We poured silt loam organic levels of 2.7%. We did have 8.4 parts per million in this irrigation water, so we can account for about 20 pounds of nitrogen that was put on in season through that, which that's not included here in this graphic. This is just total applied nitrogen, whether that's starter fertilizer, anhydrous, anything like that. This site did receive hail damage, but it was before the V6 growth stage and really recovered well. We didn't see any major yield hits at this site due to that. So like I said earlier, this green line is the grower's nitrogen, applied nitrogen, and the purple and blue, which they're laying right over top of each other at this site because they didn't ever trigger after we took control at V6. So this was really neat to see it never trigger and to have the results that we have here on this next slide. So we did see a difference in total applied nitrogen of 101 pounds, which was definitely statistically significant. We didn't see a really big yield difference here. You know, we did see the loss of 3 to 6 bushels an acre, but this is pretty high yields, and I mean, we're right there with the farmer. That especially that increased rate technically is not statistically different than the grower. This risk averse post establishment is different, but those treatment types actually acted as the same treatment in this field, since they didn't ever trigger that increased rate, never had the opportunity to put on 60 pounds of nitrogen. So this probably, this fluctuation in yield might just be some spatial variability in this field, and where those treatments were actually placed in the field. We can see that we were 36% more efficient than that grower. And so that is a statistically difference between our sensor-based treatments. We also saw it to be statistically different in our marginal net return as well. And so we were more profitable at $62 an acre at this site than the grower. So really exciting results here. And we can see kind of the same correlation here at our post-harvest soil samples as well. So statistically different on both, sample depths and about, 60 pounds of nitrogen difference left, residual nitrogen left in the soil. So yeah, like I said, really matches the correlation, and that growers over applied nitrogen and not really having the corn utilize it. Yeah, we can see that we're under 10 parts per million in our first 0 to 8 and under 5 in our 8 to 24 sample as well. So this is really good. We're keeping those nitrate levels down, and really minimizing nitrogen that could be going through the soil profile. So this is all the sites for this year. The way to read this graphic is that anything above this x-axis here is more profitable when compared to the grower's management. Anything below it in this quadrant down here is going to be less profitable. Anything to the right of this x-axis, this y-axis, excuse me, is more efficient than compared to the grower, and anything to the left is less efficient. So these are all the sites this year. These are from site 1, these are from site 2. So you can just see those two treatments when they're compared to the grower's treatments, there's differences here. And then just kind of look at all the sites that we've done since 2019. We can really see this increase over the past few years. It really has increased, moving farther and farther into this top right quadrant. So it's really exciting just to see the over time, the correlation of this method, and the corn prices are listed over here, and that's for each year specific is calculated at that specific corn price. So this year, all of our values were at 6.80 and 80 cents per pound of nitrogen. So some key takeaways is that our risk-averse post-establishment treatments increased profitability by $24 on average. So that's really, really encouraging, especially when we had 100% of the test sites were more efficient in terms of nitrogen use efficiency when compared to the grower's nitrogen management. This method allows for estimates of crop available nitrogen from imagery collected every 3 to 4 days. So things that we aren't really able to quantify, like mineralization, we're not really able to quantify them that precisely. So this imagery is actually quantifying that for us. And so, when we have environmental factors play a part into it, things that we can't account for at the beginning of the growing season, in the beginning of when farmers might be planning out their total nitrogen goals. This imagery really allows to take all those things into consideration by collecting imagery every week or every 4 days. So this indicator block approach that we talked about enables a 7-day outlook prediction, whether that fertigation event will be required, and isolates nitrogen stress from other potential yield limiting factors. This method also enables the growers to respond in a timely fashion, to respond to that crop uptake need every 3 to 4 days. And then we can create management zones to be incorporated, accounting for significant areas of field variability. So like I said, this past year has shown really great potential for improved economics and reduced environmental impacts with this technology and imagery. So with that, I just want to thank all the growers in the study, Central Platte NRD for their support, with Dean and Tyler Smith, our research technician and manager, Kelsey Swantek, an intern, Emily Hansen, also an intern, and my advisor, Dr. Joe Luck, for their contributions. And if you have questions about this or how to get connected, please feel free to reach out. My contact information is there. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.